The Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 is here, and it's the biggest design update we've had on a Galaxy Fold. I've had some early hands-on time with it. Let's compare it to last year's Z Fold 6 SuperSaf style to see really how much has improved. And stay tuned for one thing that's missing. Now let's start off with the design, because Samsung has finally given us a super thin foldable that actually feels like a regular smartphone when it's closed. When it's unfolded, it is just 4.2 millimeters thin. It is crazy thin. The USB-C port just about fits in this frame. And when it's folded, it's just 8.9 millimeters thin. That makes it 26% thinner compared to the Fold 6. It's also significantly lighter compared to the Z Fold 6, around 24 grams lighter. And the Z Fold 7 is even lighter compared to the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, which is a regular smartphone. Now, as you can probably tell, I am so happy with this design change. Samsung has pretty much given us incremental updates since the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 2, and it looks like they are finally bringing some serious competition to the foldable market with the Z Fold 7. The Z Fold 7 still maintains the IP48 water and dust resistant rating, so water resistance is going to be absolutely fine. Dust resistance, it can only resist dust particles that are above 1 millimeter, so it's not going to be absolutely dust proof like other devices. And the Z Fold 6 came in 3 official colors, a silver shadow, a pink, as well as a navy. There are 2 exclusive colors available from Samsung.com, which you're going to struggle to find right now. The Z Fold 7 also comes in 3 official colors, a blue shadow, a jet black, as well as a silver shadow. Now, there is an exclusive mint color, which is going to be available from Samsung.com only. If you're interested in picking that up and you want the best deals available, use my affiliate link down in the description below. That's going to give you double the storage, as well as up to $50 or £50 in Samsung credit. This is super exclusive. They've not really done this before for the UK at least, so do go ahead and check out that link. It's on for a limited time, so if you're thinking about it, you might want to get it quickly. Now for the Fold 6, we have an enhanced armor aluminium frame and hinge, and then we have Gorilla Glass Victus 2, both the front and the back. For the Z Fold 7, although we still have a Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the back, we have a Gorilla Glass Ceramic 2 on the front cover display. Now this is going to be more durable, and it is the same material that's used on the S25 Edge. We also have 50% thicker ultra thin glass for the main display. That has reduced the crease slightly, and it's also going to make it more durable. For the frame, we have an advanced armor aluminium frame, which once again is supposed to be more durable. And we now have an armor flex hinge. This is using a water droplet design and a multi-rail structure. Samsung say that this has been re-engineered to evenly disperse stress and protect the display integrity. And it's also using grade 4 titanium for the lattice. Now, in my testing, this did seem very sturdy, especially considering how thin the Z Fold 7 is. So it looks like it will hold up. That's something I'm gonna have to test long term. Right, now let's talk about the displays, because we've got some huge improvements here as well. Now, although both the cover and the main displays on the Z Fold 6 and the Z Fold 7 are Dynamic AMOLED 2X, they all have 120 Hz for the refresh rate, as well as a 2600 nits peak brightness. The display sizes are now completely different. So on the Fold 7, we now get a larger 8-inch display. So this is around 11% larger compared to the Fold 6. And for the cover display, Finally, we have a usable wide cover display on the Z Fold 7. This is a 6.5-inch display up from 6.3 inches, and it has a 21:9 aspect ratio, similar to what we have on Xperia devices. But I think most importantly, the cover display on the Z Fold 7 is now around 5 millimeters wider compared to the Z Fold 6. Samsung have made the cover display slightly wider with each generation, but it's only ever been a couple of millimeters. This time, with a 5mm wider display, it is so much more usable. It feels like a regular smartphone when you're using the Z Fold 7 closed without compromise. And then of course, you can open it for that beautiful 8-inch display. This is something that we've been waiting for from the Z Fold 1. That was the dream, having a regular smartphone that expands out into a tablet. And I think with the Z Fold 7, Samsung have finally caught up to the competition, and this is what we have. Now, on the topic of compromises, Another thing that has generally been a compromise if you do go for a Samsung Galaxy Fold device is that the cameras are just not going to be good as something like the Ultra series. And this is something that I have been feeding back for the past few years, so it looks like Samsung is listening to me. I'm taking full credit for this. Joking. Everybody has been talking about this for a long time. So now the primary camera on the Z Fold 7 is 200 megapixels, and it is the same sensor as we have on the S25 Edge as well as the S25 Ultra. So this is going to give you 4 times more detail compared to the Z Fold 6, and it's also 44% brighter. As well as that, we have an improved ultra-wide camera. Although it's still 12 megapixels, it now has autofocus, which means you're going to be able to use it for macro photography. And it's also got larger pixels, which means you're going to get 56% brighter ultra-wide images compared to the Z Fold 6. Now, the telephoto camera hasn't really changed. It's still 10 megapixels with 3 times optical zoom. Yes, of course, a periscope zoom camera like we have on the S25 Ultra would have been ideal, but I'm going to let Samsung off for this one because making the device so thin, having a periscope zoom camera would be very tricky from an engineering perspective. Maybe that's something that we're going to see in future with some updated technologies. But for now, I am happy with the 10 megapixel telephoto zoom camera. Now, we have some changes for the selfie cameras as well. So for the cover display, although it's still 10 megapixels, it's slightly wider. But the main change we have is that Samsung has got rid of the under display camera. Thank you, Samsung. It honestly feels like Samsung has kind of watched my videos and been like, okay, tick, this is what Saf wants, so thank you. Now, I've said this before, but the 4 megapixel under display camera was okay for video calls and things, but it just wasn't very good. And personally, I don't mind a small punch out, which is going to give me a much better selfie camera. And that's what we have on the Z Fold 7. It's now 10 megapixels. It has a wider field of view, and it's also 2.5 times clearer compared to what we had on the Z Fold 6. Now, as well as that, we do have the next gen Pro Visual Engine, which is going to help reduce things like noise. And we now also have log video recording as well as 10-bit HDR video on the Z Fold 7. So big improvements for the cameras on the Z Fold 7, and we also have big improvements for the performance. So as expected, the Z Fold 7 is powered by the Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy. This is the same chipset that we've got on the Samsung S25 series. Now, the Z Fold 6 is pretty good already in terms of performance with the 8 Gen 3, but with the 8 Elite, you're going to get roughly around 41% faster NPU performance, 38% faster CPU performance, and 26% faster GPU performance. Now, the Z Fold 7, like the Z Fold 6, has 12 gigabytes of RAM. However, if you do buy the 1TB version of the Z Fold 7, you'll get 16 gigabytes of RAM. Now, one thing that hasn't changed, and something that I was hoping for, is the battery. So the battery size is exactly the same, 4,400 milliamps. Now, in terms of usage, Samsung have said it's going to give you just 1 hour more video playback compared to the Z Fold 6. So not a huge improvement in terms of battery usage. This is something that I have talked about before, but I would have liked Samsung to have used silicon carbon technology for the battery. This is something that a lot of the competition are using, and it means that you can get a much larger capacity battery in relatively the same size and weight. So had Samsung used silicon carbon technology, we would have potentially had a 5,000 or maybe even a 5,500 milliamp hour battery on the Z Fold 7 without compromising on size. Now, granted, Samsung does have to ship out way more units compared to a lot of the competition, and silicon carbon technology is still relatively new. And with Samsung's background with batteries, maybe they just want to kind of hold off on silicon carbon for now. How good is the battery life on the Z Fold 7? This is something that I'm going to have to test out. The Z Fold 6 had good battery life. It wasn't great. However, with the Z Fold 7, with the new chipset, as well as the fact that you now have a much more usable front display, it will mean that you won't have to use the main display as often as you would have to do on the Z Fold 6. So it should give you better battery life. This is something that I will be testing in my full review. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you're subscribed. Charging hasn't changed either. We've got 25 watts of charging. Wireless charging is also supported at 15 watts, and you also still have wireless power share on both devices. Now, realistically speaking, with just how thin the device is, I was potentially expecting Samsung not to include wireless charging, but like they have done with the S25 Edge, they still do have wireless charging on the Z Fold 7, which is good news. That brings me on to the software. So the Z Fold 7 is going to come out of the box with Android 16 and One UI 8. Samsung have promised 7 generations of OS updates and 7 years of security updates. The Z Fold 6 came with Android 14 out of the box with One UI 6. However, currently at the time of this video, it is on Android 15 with One UI 7. And Samsung also promised 7 generations of OS updates with 7 years of security updates on the Z Fold 6. However, because the Z Fold 6 has been out for a year, understandably, it's going to mean that this software update cycle is going to be reduced by 1 year. Now let's talk about Galaxy AI. So the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6 is actually packed with some really useful AI features. The Z Fold 7 has some new and improved ones. So one of the ones that I found most useful was side-by-side editing. So when you're editing an image, you can actually compare them side by side. You can zoom in. This is kind of what you can do on a professional app like Adobe Lightroom, and it is very useful to really compare the changes. You've also got enhanced generative edit with suggestions for erasers. So it will tell you, do you want to remove the photo bombers? And you can do that. And I have to emphasize that in my experience and testing, Samsung has the best generative AI editor compared to any other smartphone out there. It is just very, very good. Audio eraser has now been improved, so it now also works with phone calls, it works with the video player, as well as the voice recorder. Samsung has also optimized their own apps as well as other apps for the larger screen. So we've got Gemini, optimized for the larger screen, as well as Gemini Advanced for 6 months free, with features like video share as well as screen share included. And we can now circle to search during gameplay for real-time gaming tips without having to leave the game. And you can now also drag and drop AI results from one window to another when you're using the multi-window view. Now, the obvious question is going to be, how many of these new Z Fold 7 Galaxy AI features are going to come on to the Z Fold 6? Well, I did ask Samsung that, and obviously they gave me a very PR response, so they're not answering that question yet. I'd assume some of them at least will trickle over. Right now, at this point in time, the Galaxy Z Fold 6 does have features like Call Assist, Writing Assist, Interpreter, Note Assist, Transcript Assist, Browsing Assist, Photo Assist, Drawing Assist, man, that's a lot of assists, Audio Razor, Photo Ambient Wallpaper, as well as Health Assist. So it is quite feature packed. I would personally assume that some of the new features on the Z Fold 7 will be coming onto the Z Fold 6, but we're gonna have to wait and see. How long are these features gonna be free? Again, this is something that Samsung hasn't officially released a statement on. So they're gonna be free up until the end of this year. What happens after that, we don't know. They may carry on keeping them free, or they might start charging. Now, to tell you what is missing, like I teased at the beginning of this video. So you may have already figured, the Fold 6 does have S Pen support. The Fold 7 does not. Because of how thin the Fold 7 is, it looks like they've not been able to fit in a digitizer. How much of a big deal is that going to be for you? Well, with the Fold 6, the S Pen was not included. This is something that you would have to buy separately, either an individual S Pen or an S Pen case. So how many people actually bought that? Maybe Samsung saw that not that many people bought the S Pen case. I can tell you from my personal usage of the Z Fold 6, the S Pen case actually made the device even thicker than it already was. So I actually didn't like it, and I didn't end up using the S Pen that much. Plus it only worked on the main display. It didn't work on the cover display. So for me personally, not having the S Pen support on the Fold 7 is something that I personally am okay with. If you're not, then you might want to stick to the Z Fold 6. Now finally, for the pricing. So the good news is that the Z Fold 7 is coming in at the same price as the Z Fold 6 in the UK. So starting price is going to be £1,800. Now remember, you can get double the storage as well as additional money off using my exclusive affiliate link. That's going to be linked down below. That is for a limited time, and you should be able to get a pretty good deal on the Z Fold 7. And with some of the trade-ins, if you have a Z Fold 6, it might actually just be worth trading that in and getting the brand new Z Fold 7 because it is now a massive update. So if you ask me personally, for my opinion, if you have the Z Fold 6 or an older Samsung Galaxy Fold, then I would personally run to get the Fold 7 because I think Samsung have finally listened and brought up the Z Fold 7 in line with a lot of the competition, some of which is not widely available in Western markets as well. So I think this is something that's really going to make Samsung stand out. Am I going to be switching to the Z Fold 7? Well, you're going to have to wait for my next video, so make sure you subscribe to see that first. What do you guys think of the Z Fold 7? Are you disappointed of losing that S Pen functionality? Drop me a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, then do smash that like button for me. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on SuperSaf TV. I'll see you next time.